So, Amanda, great to welcome you into my office to
Thank
do
you.
our Timothy Project podcast and to
Yeah.
get to know more about you. And so, maybe for those who have only seen you from a distance at church, or maybe for
Mhm.
those who somehow have missed you, which would be amazing because
Mhm.
you're present a lot. But still, if that's the case, tell us about yourself. You can start anywhere you like, from your
Okay.
name to where you grew up, to just
Yeah.
take us through what would you like us to know about you to begin?
Okay. I love that.
Mm.
Well, thank you for having me.
Of
I'm so
course, my
excited to
pleasure.
do
My
this.
pleasure.
But I was born in upstate New York.
Right.
So my family moved down. It was probably I was like 5. It was early. So North
Okay.
Carolina has always been home.
Do you have any
Um
memories of
I
that
do
time?
just
Okay.
because at first we still traveled back up to New York a
Right.
lot for like holidays and things like that. So I think
Okay.
most of my memories are from like the homes that I lived in, not as much
Right.
of like the city or the
Now, it's probably good
area.
you say because I'm sure we probably have at least one other person in New York or from New York in the
Yes.
congregation. So whereabouts were you
So it
specifically?
was Syracuse,
Okay.
Manulus area. So
Okay.
it's super upstate.
Okay.
But it's funny you say that because we moved to Cary, which
Right.
is obviously Cary. And
Yep.
the joke is that it's the concentrated area of relocated Yankees.
And so you were indeed part of that
Yes, we
trend.
were part of it. We moved into a cul-de-sac, and like all 4 houses in the cul-de-sac were from
Ah,
somewhere upstate New York. So
we are a better state because of
yeah,
it. So it's all good.
we we brought a lot of accents down, I guess. But yeah, and then my
Mhm.
family has been in that house ever since. So we've been down here like
Cool.
25 years.
Awesome.
Um, and yeah, have lived in Cary, went to East Carolina University.
There you go.
So I didn't go too far.
Okay.
And then ended up I went up to DC for a few years for work and got
Okay.
to experience that, and then, I knew I always wanted to come home, and my whole family's here now. Once
Sure.
my parents moved down, grandparents moved down, and
Mhm.
then we all just kinda settled, so I knew I wanted
Nice.
to come back to Raleigh at some point.
Nice. And if I
Um,
remember you saying to me at another occasion, you've got a brother still at East. No,
South Carolina.
he's South
Yep.
Carolina.
Yep,
Yeah.
good memory.
So
Yeah, he's,
yeah.
in his senior year.
Wow.
So, yeah, so we'll see what he
Oh,
does
I'm about
next,
to say, will
but
he come back to the homeland
I
of
hope
Cary, or will they
so.
go,
We're all
nah?
trying, but now that I'm like we have a 10-year age gap, so
Okay.
I've always been like the second mom he didn't ask for,
Yeah.
but now that I'm, older, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, you definitely gotta come home. Like, why
Yeah.
would you go anywhere else?" And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I sound just like my own mother." Being like, "You have to come back to Cary. Why would you never come back here?"
And what was that like growing up
But,
with a brother that much younger than you?
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
It was different because
Mhm.
I was almost 10 when he was born, so
Right.
I remember all of it, where I feel like some
Right.
siblings, it's, you were
Yeah.
a baby yourself, so you don't you're,
Sure.
such a young child, but, so that made it really
Mhm.
special to, like,
Nice.
see him grow up and be a
Right.
part of it, but yeah, I mean, when I was 18, he was 8, when I was 20, he
Yeah.
was 10, so it was really more of like a second mom figure in the phone. We always joke about it in our house, but
Right.
now that he's like I'm 31, he's 21, like we have so much in common now.
Right.
So it's so fun to have that relationship
Right.
and be kind of in the same stages of life as
Yeah.
opposed to where we were when he was 8 and I was 18.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's
Mm.
special.
I'm glad you guys have that good relationship. I'm
Yeah.
sure that'll mean a lot, especially as you get older.
Yes,
I think as an
definitely.
only child, you do kind of think, oh, it's these days you wish you had a sibling. Glad I didn't
Ye
have one growing up, but it's
Yes.
actually kind of nice, do you think, now
Yes.
to have that connection. So I'm
Yeah.
pleased you have that.
No, well, thank
Now, you mentioned a second ago about DC.
you. Mhm.
Was that with like something political, or were you like a
No, that
lobbyist or something
was
like that? Tell us
no,
about what took you up
no,
there and sort of what you do now.
that was all, it was my first or, like, second real job out of
Mhm.
college,
Okay.
and it was working for, like, an association management company, and so I
Okay.
put on events for,
Right.
like, nonprofits up in DC.
Oh, okay.
So it was a really fun job. I loved the
Yeah.
DC area,
Right.
because it was cool. It was just so different than anything I'd ever known.
Right.
Like,
It's
just
a neat
walking out
city.
your front door and going wherever you want,
Right.
by foot or, getting on the
Right.
the metro and going anywhere. So it was really fun, but it did get to a point where I was ready to come home
Yeah.
um, and I knew I had always wanted to start and do my own thing,
Mhm.
um, but it just, it was never the right timing, so
Sure.
it ended up being the right timing. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
What was your favorite thing you like to do in DC? Out of curiosity,
Oh,
was it
that's
a
a good
site or
question.
a particular spot you
Yeah.
enjoyed?
I
And there's
honestly,
many you can
I
say.
yeah, there is. I feel like I truly did just love the freedom of going anywhere. Like,
Yeah,
just that feeling of, like, being able to walk out your front door.
yeah.
You didn't need to wait for anything, like, because I where I lived was a really fun area in the sense that, like, I
Mhm.
walked to the grocery store, the gym, like, and I'd never lived that way before. I was always
Right,
used to driving, 30 minutes to get somewhere,
right.
or, it not being super convenient.
Sure.
So that was I really loved that, and then just being
Cool.
like, remembering I remember every time I would fly back into DC, it was
Mhm.
always cool to, like, because sometimes you go over the monuments or, like, near them,
Oh, yeah.
and it was
Flying
cool
into
to be
Reagan,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and it'd be
absolutely.
cool to be like, "I live here," and, like, people come from all over the world to, like, come see this
Yeah.
stuff that I can just see on a morning run, which
Wow.
is really was really cool, so
I imagine that side of living in a city like DC or a London or a, I
mhm,
don't know, Sao Paulo, wherever,
yeah,
is quite amazing. I would imagine also, though, it can be quite a transient place, just
mhm,
especially at DC, where there's
yeah,
constant movement of political parties, of,
mhm,
of
mhm,
lobbyists, of
yeah,
international delegates. I mean,
yeah,
all those folks just constantly coming in. It makes it great.
mhm,
But I could also imagine it be quite a lonely place as
mhm,
well.
mhm,
Whereas a
yep,
Raleigh, I know it's getting bigger by the day, but at least there's a more of a stability about a
yeah,
city this size. Did you find
totally.
that was the case even just in your 2
It's
years?
funny you
Uh-huh.
say that because I joke that, like, I knew people when I went up there and had friends when I
Mhm.
went up there, but I made maybe, like, 3 friends the whole time I was there,
Right.
and it wasn't for a lack of trying, it was just because of that, like, not everybody stays put, like, when you
Yeah.
meet people, they might have already been well established within their, DC communities,
Yeah.
and, um, it's funny because the one thing I was missing in DC was a church, like, I didn't go to
Interesting.
church when I was in DC.
Okay.
Um, and I didn't go when I was in college either. Like, I feel
Okay.
like when I left home is when church stopped, and it wasn't really for any rhyme or
Right.
reason, but, I guess just the being in a new place and not,
Sure.
committing to that. But so I didn't have that in DC, and now
Mhm.
it's funny because I'm like, I probably would have made friends and connections
Right.
had I been going to church,
Yeah.
because it would have been something consistent and
Sure.
like-minded
A
people,
community.
and,
Yeah.
so yeah,
It's
yeah,
interesting you say that. I think for 2 reasons. One, because a lot of our folks in the congregation have children your age. I
yeah,
mean, so
yeah.
in some ways they're
But
probably
those
watching
people are
us.
my favorite people.
Well, that's good, good. But they're probably thinking, for my kid who has gone off to college or
Yeah.
moved somewhere else and they're not getting involved in church, it's probably
Mhm.
good that they hear, hey,
Yeah,
this
that's
is
true.
something that happens. And
Mhm.
one, keep encouraging them, it
Mhm.
sounds like, to
Mhm.
go. And maybe if you had, I don't know if your parents were encouraging you at that time, but if they
Yeah.
if they weren't, then
Yeah.
maybe, hey, keep encouraging them to go to a
Mhm.
church or find a church because it
Mhm.
does provide a connection
Mhm.
that
It does.
it's unique. One, because of what it is, our
Mhm.
faith in Christ, but also
Yeah.
just a literal community that in a place like a DC
Yeah.
where there's so much change, to know you have that
Yeah.
in common kind of
Mhm.
brings you together.
Yeah. It
Um,
totally does.
it's funny, a friend and I were having a conversation recently about making friends and
Mhm.
how it seems now, I know I'm a little older than you are, but we're still on the younger side, at least
Yes.
by our
Yes.
congregation standards. And I was saying, I think it is harder in this day and age to
Mhm.
make good, long lasting friends. If you've
Mhm.
not had them in college, like college friends that you already knew,
Yeah.
or maybe work folks,
Mhm.
especially with working remotely, how do you really make friends
Yeah.
anymore? And I know it's not impossible,
Mhm.
but at the same time, I wonder if it's more challenging in a way.
Yeah. I think it is. I think
Hmm.
it's, especially with, like, the whole remote work, like, I say that
Sure.
all the time to my parents or friends, like,
Right.
I if I don't go to meetings outside of my house, like, I might not leave I mean, I go to the gym in the morning, but, like,
Sure.
I won't, I might not talk to another adult
Yeah.
besides, like, saying good morning at the gym or, "Are you done with this machine?" Like,
Right.
if I could go a half a day with that.
Yeah.
My one grandma will call me, and if I haven't spoken to somebody in a long time or, like, used my voice, she'll be like, "Did I just wake you?" And it'll
Oh,
be, like, 2 o'clock in
bless.
the afternoon, and I'm like, "No, you're just
No.
the first person I've spoken to today." So it is. I think it is hard.
Yeah.
And I made it a little easier on myself by coming
Hmm.
home because I grew up here, so I do have,
Right.
friends that eventually did move home or,
Sure.
family that's here, but, It is hard.
Well,
It's
I guess
hard.
on that point, I know a little something about you that you were a student at Ravenscroft.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. By all means, tell us about that. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, do you still keep in touch with any of those folks,
Yeah.
or any even this in this area anymore?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I don't know if it's a tribute to Ravenscroft or what it is, but I
Hmm.
feel like all of my friends from Ravenscroft have the same experience of saying that, like, our friends were still so close
Right.
from that
Awesome.
time. And similar to St. Timothy's, it's a smaller school, so, like, everybody
Right.
really knows each other. Like, there's
Sure.
nobody I didn't know, at least their face and their name
Right.
when I was there. So, it was special
Hmm.
to I guess we didn't realize it in the moment how impactful it would
Right.
be down the road, but
Right.
yeah, all of those quote unquote connections or friends like are
Hmm.
still people. If I were to see at Trader Joe's, I'd be like, "Oh, you
Yeah.
went to
You
Ravenscroft,"
wouldn't
or
avoid them.
yeah, you're not hiding from them.
Oh,
Yeah, you're like, "Oh
quickly
no,
look at the
run
steak.
away." Yeah, maybe certain teachers that didn't like me, but no, it was a really like big community there.
Cool.
Yeah, it just happened the other night. I was out to dinner with one of my best friends from Ravenscroft, and someone
Nice.
walked up and was like, "You guys went to Ravenscroft?" And we were like, "Yeah, you
Yeah.
did too." And
Wow.
it sparks a conversation. So I
That's
don't
nice.
know how many people are back versus,
Hmm.
went off and did their own things, but
Sure.
there's always some sort of connection. Raleigh, I feel
Right.
like it's such a small.
It's
I
awesome.
feel myself saying it's such a small world all the
Hmm.
time when I'm meeting new
Yeah.
people.
Well,
So
good. Well, I'm glad you've
yeah,
had those connections and can keep them,
yeah,
because it's, as I say, I think becoming more challenging to move to new community
hmm
and just not have that means of getting connected
hmm
with another person.
I agree.
And yeah, so awesome. Well, very cool.
Yeah.
So you came back to Raleigh, and of course, you started, I think, to say this, and I might have cut you off,
No.
but you mentioned about working for sort of marketing.
Mhm.
Is that mainly your primary role now? And I'm asking that because I know exactly what led you to come to St. Timothy's, and we'll
Yes.
come on to that. But is
Yes.
that mainly what you do now?
No,
In your day to day?
so yeah, so now it is all events. So
Okay.
everything planning related to I still do corporate event planning,
Mhm.
but wedding planning is a lot of it as well.
Right.
So yeah, and that's exactly what brought me to St.
Well,
Timothy's
tell us that
was
story.
oh
I
my
think
gosh,
people would love to hear it because I
I
know it.
love
So,
this
yes,
story.
please
It
tell it.
makes
I'd
me
love for you to
so
tell
happy.
it.
Because and even through those years of college, like not going to church, it was
Mhm.
the one thing about it is I feel like because I had been so faithful and gone to church as a
Mhm.
child, like it was just ingrained in me to continue that
Right.
relationship, whether I was in a church or not.
Right.
Which
Probably
I
something
know
good to know for
yeah,
parents as well
yeah.
watching, like, oh, keep at it
You
because it
still
does,
feel,
yeah,
yeah,
have
you
an
still
effect.
feel that presence of like right from wrong and
Right.
knowing, what God would be hoping you're doing or
Yeah.
um
Awesome.
the presence of that but yeah, so I had moved back.
Mhm.
I wasn't in Raleigh yet. I
Mhm.
was up in Lake Gaston at Lake Gaston, so
Mhm.
it was like this must have been like 2022 I think or 21.
Something around there.
Yeah, and I
Mhm.
met Taylor Lord and
Mhm.
her mom, and they hired me as their wedding planner, and I
Awesome.
remember coming to do the and today's world, talking about today's world, like, and being in the
Uh-huh.
wedding planning of it all, like, it's so common for you to hear couples be like, um, "We just want the ceremony to be 30 minutes. It's gonna be in and out. We want it to be super quick.
I
Like,
hear
it's
that
a
too.
friend." Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's,
What?
and it's not, that's we're really excited to get to what comes after.
Right.
And that is great for those couples, and I love that that is for them, but
Right.
it does like, there is a different like passion that I have when there
Right.
is a couple that wants to get married in the church and wants to have that
Yeah.
be what's important to them,
Yeah.
and have a great party afterwards with all their favorite people. But
Absolutely.
anytime a couple is like, "Yeah, we're getting married in a church," or we are, um, having our pastor come in or our priest come in or
Mhm.
something like that, I'm
Right.
like, okay, this service will mean more than just
Right.
getting in and getting out. And at the end of the day, I tell all my couples, regardless how long their ceremony is, like that moment is the only reason we are here. Like we are not here to
Yeah.
go drink and have a great time
Right.
afterwards, but, like, we are here for that moment up on that altar.
It's awesome you tell them that. Brilliant.
Yeah, and it's special, and every couple cares about it. It's
Indeed.
just I think sometimes they care too much about their guests, and they're like, "We don't wanna put them,
Yes, they wanna play
through."
host and
Yes.
actually not focus on themselves. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
yes. So you see a lot I see a lot of that too, but,
Yeah.
I digress. But so Taylor and her mom
Yeah,
were oh my gosh, they were amazing,
they are.
and, um, yeah, so they hired me and I came, I think the first time I met you was at their rehearsal the day
Mhm.
before,
Yep.
and you guys ran the show, and I was like, "This is awesome," and I remember because usually I have to, participate, because they're not at churches, so, the church handles a lot of the
Sure.
ceremony,
Yeah.
obviously the entire thing, but so I remember being able to just sit in the back, and I remember
Mhm.
sitting there and I was like, "This just feels right." Like I wasn't going
Awesome.
to a church. I was up in Lake Gaston a
Mhm.
little bit, but not like a member of any
Right.
church. And I just remember sitting there and being like, "This feels right."
Oh,
And I knew
brilliant.
St.
Hallelujah.
Timothy's. Oh my gosh,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And I knew the area and I knew the church. Um, and I loved that it was Episcopalian because that's what
Mhm.
I had grown up, and
Okay.
it just I don't know, it just felt right.
Right.
Um,
The Lord was beckoning.
yeah, and you and
Yeah.
you talk about those moments and you're like you hear people talk about them and you're like, "Yeah, that's great." But then when you feel one, you're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, that's what that feels like." Like,
Awesome.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, so then, yeah, then I never turned around and I told
Mm.
Mrs. Lord and Taylor that they, in ways saved me and brought me here
Yeah.
and um, it was perfect.
Yeah.
So then I never left.
I know. I mean,
Mhm.
I know you know that she, of course, passed away this past year, and
Yeah.
and I remember talking to her about you coming because I guess maybe you had not attended on a day they were there. Anyway, but I
Yeah.
mentioned to Deanna that you were
Yeah.
coming, and she just went, "I was so pleased with Amanda. Oh, she was so amazing." Ah, but she just had
She was the
nothing but
best.
praise for you,
Yeah.
and of course the job you did professionally,
Mhm. Mhm.
but just you personally, she really was very fond of you. So,
Mhm.
which I'm sure the family has told you as well, but and
They're
probably she did
great.
before she
Yeah.
passed. But yeah, I remember thinking this is cool. One of these
Yeah.
wonderful little
I
connections,
know, it was
and
special.
yeah,
It
it was good.
was. It was nice, like, in a personal way for that to be, how I came to the
Hmm.
church and
Yeah.
then, had a familiar face and already had memories in the church
Right.
from day one.
Yeah.
And then I remember too, I had just come
Hmm.
off and I used to tell Deanna this all the time,
Hmm.
but the weekend before
Hmm.
Taylor and Sam's wedding, the mother of the bride was just everything of Mrs. Lord, think the complete opposite. And so it was a hard one. Like, I don't have hard weddings because I have such good clients,
Right.
but it was a hard one with that
So this
mom.
is the previous weekend, this
Yes,
lady was
I
just, "Oh,
was in tears. Like, it was not good, and it takes a lot for me to
oh,
get to that point.
yeah."
And I remember coming into this wedding and I knew that they were wonderful people because I had been
Sure,
planning with them, but,
sure.
um, you know, people aren't the same the day of the wedding as they are the entire planning
Oh,
process,
I'm
which is
sure.
what had happened the weekend before.
Yeah. Oh,
And it
wow.
was I mean, she literally restored my faith in weddings and mothers of the brides
Brilliant.
and in every sense of the word. So,
Cool.
um, yeah, yeah, it
Awesome.
was very, very special.
Well, maybe
So,
if Taylor and Megan see this, they can hear that as
yes,
well,
I
because
know.
I know it's probably nothing they're
Yeah.
shocked by, but still, it's
No.
lovely to think that coming off that very stressful wedding the weekend before to come into a wedding where
Yeah.
one, the church and the Lord was speaking to you, but also just
Yeah.
to know that that was manifest in Deanna's actions,
Mhm.
especially,
It
and
was.
not to forget Mike, by the way,
No.
but yes, that was just something
Yes,
that further
yes.
drew you in, and
Yeah,
I just think that's wonderful to see God using those situations and circumstances
definitely.
to do that.
Yeah,
So
and
that
it
is
didn't
cool.
stop there. I can keep going. It didn't stop there
How long do
because
we? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
it really didn't though, because then when
Yeah.
I met you
Hmm.
formally
Yeah.
and we were talking about like how you came to be here and where you had been
Sure.
previously, like it was like one thing after the next. Like you had been
Hmm.
an understudy, I don't know if that's the correct term,
Yeah.
but at
Hmm.
my old church, and this is all such God moments of being like you are in
Yeah.
the right place.
Well,
So,
maybe just say a little bit about that.
yeah.
So, St. Paul's Cary is the
Yes.
church you're talking about. So,
Yes.
yeah, that is a connection we do have. I
Yep.
remember serving a placement there
Yes.
and knew
Yeah.
the church. In fact,
Yeah.
the director just retired,
Yes.
George,
Yeah. Father
who I
George
guess would have
did.
been there when you were
He
there.
was. Yeah. He was
Yeah.
the main guy for all the years that I was there. Um, so yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Now, we, of course, have talked about something that I guess we'll probably look to do in this coming year
Mhm,
ahead, 2026.
mhm.
But that you used to do a lot at that church. I'd love to talk about
Yeah.
it together. I know we've talked about it, but maybe
Yes.
some who are
Yeah.
listening can get excited with us, which is a project called the Appalachian Service
Yes.
Project. And so I'd love to hear sort of maybe a brief history of how you got involved in it at
Yeah.
St. Paul's, but also what about that sort of work really speaks deeply to you? That sort of
Mhm.
getting practical, like
Yeah.
Samaritan's Purse, like we
Yes.
did Helene Relief.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that and
Yeah.
just why that's such a passion of yours.
Yeah. I think, so I grew up my dad is a contractor, so,
Oh, okay.
we were always used to,
Swinging
like
hammers and
yeah, yeah, and rolling up
yep.
your sleeves and just
Nice.
watching dad do those things.
Yeah.
And it was just kind of what you did at St. Paul's or yeah, at St. Paul's.
Mhm.
I thought I said St. Timothy's the first time. I'm so used to saying St. Timothy's now,
Sure.
but at St. Paul's, it was if you were in kind of um, like we had Sunday school every Sunday after
Mhm.
church, and like our youth group. It was a very young church at the
Right.
time, so there were a lot of children my age at that time
Right.
when I was there, and so it was kind of just what you did. Like, it was,
Mhm.
your friends were going on
Sure.
ASP, so of course I was gonna go on ASP.
Right.
And so, yeah, it was every summer we would go for a week, and
Mhm.
it was directed by our youth director,
Cool.
at the time, and again, these were kids that, like, I had gone through first communion with and got
Mhm.
confirmed with and things
Mhm.
like that, so, um, it was going to church was seeing your friends as a child,
Sure.
which I think was special,
Yeah.
and cool as a kid. But yeah, so we would go every summer, and you would go and you'd be there for the entire week. And I think I just really enjoyed.
Mhm.
I think it was nice to see faith outside of church and see it outside
Right.
of for me, it was mostly seeing it at church. I mean, you would see it in your
Sure.
day-to-day life, but you're a kid, like, some things are flying right over your head, and you're like, "Whoa,
Exactly.
what was
Probably a
that?"
lot, but
Yes,
yes.
yes. So it was cool to see God and other people being faithful outside of the walls of the church,
Yeah.
and it was just fun, like, you got to see I mean, we were seeing very similar homes to, like, what we saw,
Mhm.
when we went to Western North Carolina, like,
Yeah.
they just needed a lot of love and attention, whether it
Yeah.
was because of a natural disaster or
Right.
because of a storm or something had happened where, they were just in need of upgrades or
Yeah.
fixing. So it was cool to, like, physically see yourself change
And how old were you
something.
at this time? I know you probably went for a number of years,
Yeah,
but
I think we were allowed to start in middle school, at the
okay.
end of middle school. So
So
I think
12ish,
it was
13ish,
yeah,
somewhere
yeah,
okay.
all the way up till probably like 17. I think I went every summer I went. So
Right.
um maybe not the summer I graduated high school,
Right.
but all of them leading up to it. And it was so interesting because there were some kids that went on ASP that you would never see in church, but they would go
That's interesting.
specifically to that trip every single year.
Wow.
So it was
Hmm.
I think it had an impact on
Yeah.
the youth in the sense that, like,
Mhm.
I think that
Yeah.
speaks to the volumes of that trip for kids that age.
And at that point in a day when I think we're seeing youth abandon church, probably in
Mhm.
greater numbers
Mhm.
than even when we were growing up, to think those sort of practical things that really haven't changed, the
Yeah.
idea of getting your hands dirty, helping someone in
Yeah.
need, seems to speak very deeply.
Mhm.
And maybe you remember youth group and doing silly things and
Yeah.
lessons, but at the end of the day, those moments of
Mhm.
really putting your faith into action
Mhm.
spoke very deeply, not just to you, but also to
Yeah.
people who were not probably even as involved as you were,
Mhm.
but yet something about that really spoke deep.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
it was
So
awesome.
what would you do on these trips? I mean, I kind of gauge it's
Yeah.
something practical, helping
Mhm.
to build, but
Mhm.
were you meeting the people who were in these homes? Were you
Yeah.
interacting with them? Like
Yeah.
what was that like?
Yeah, so you would, we stayed mostly at, like, high school centers, or
Hmm.
I think they were high schools, and you were on, like, a blow-up mattress, and,
Yeah.
every location was different.
So a little bit of roughing it,
Yeah, a little bit,
which
but
at
it
13
was
you probably
yeah,
didn't care,
yeah,
but
I'm like,
yeah.
"This is awesome." But the adults and, like, I think back on it, and I'm like, "Yeah, all the adults were there too, doing the exact same thing we were doing."
Yeah.
They didn't have snore machines back then, so we we listened to that all night, um,
Another reason not to
but
fall
yeah.
asleep. Yeah.
But yeah, you'd get up in the morning, you'd have breakfast, and there were different churches all staying at these community centers.
Mhm.
So, you were meeting people from all over the East Coast, and
Oh, cool.
usually our youth director came. Father George never came with us, but
Okay.
some people had their pastors and priests come with
Right.
them. And it was just really cool because you would have like a morning prayer all together, and
Yeah.
then you would kind of go off onto your job sites. And yeah, the homeowners were typically there. It just
Right.
kind of depended on the projects, but
Sure.
typically they were there and you got to meet them. And
Nice.
yeah, I mean, sometimes that was all one person in the group might be doing, was hanging out with the homeowner,
Right.
because they might live in a secluded area and they can only
Right.
call people on the phone, or
Mhm.
don't like their neighbors or don't know their neighbors, or whatever it may be,
Sure.
and that might be
You're their
somebody's,
interaction.
yeah,
Yeah.
primary. They're like, you know what, I want to
Wow.
just go sit with so and so today. And then the rest of it was working. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
just, it's not manual labor in the sense of like anything a 13-year-old can't do.
Sure.
But I mean, you do have adults with you, or we did. And they were capable of doing things
Right.
um, at a different, degree than some of the kids were. But I mean, you did
Right.
learn a lot, like
And were the adults in
construction
your
wise.
group sort of dictating what you did, or was like a leader from the
Yeah.
organization,
Yep.
ASP?
So a leader would
Okay.
like bring you out there and kind of
Okay.
get you settled, and then they would check in on you throughout the week, but it really was kind of like your own little
Mhm.
ecosystem, which again I think was super
Cool.
cool to,
Yeah.
kind of see
Yeah.
how all the kids would figure things out. And I'm sure I've never been in town when we've done the Habitat for Humanity houses, but
Right.
I'm sure it's similar. Like you kind of find your place and you find strengths and weaknesses of
Right.
different people in the group.
Yeah. But to
So,
do it for multiple days, I
mhm.
imagine, unlike Habitat, there's this other dimension of being with people
Yeah.
being outside of church context,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you're getting to know them in a way that you probably just can't sit
Yeah.
around a coffee hour
Yep.
or
Yep.
even sit beside them at church.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's those memories,
Yeah.
and then to know you're doing something for the good of someone else as
Yes,
well.
totally.
Well, the reason I want to ask about it a lot is because I'm hopeful that
Yeah.
people in our congregation will kind of catch that bug.
Yes.
I know from doing the Helene relief, we really do have some people that I think have that zeal for
Mhm.
getting out and getting their hands dirty and
Yeah.
letting that be an expression of their faith.
Mhm. Mhm.
Not all of us want to get up and preach.
Yeah.
Not all of us want to get up and pray,
Yeah.
at least publicly.
Yes.
Hopefully
Yes.
privately,
Yes.
but publicly, I
I
get it.
love it. Yes.
We each have our gifts in our place, but I know for a lot of our folks, the idea of getting in there and
Mhm.
really serving is just speaks to their heart. So
Mhm.
I'd love to find some ways in our church that we can do
Mhm.
that. I
Me
know we're
too.
talking about it, but
Yes. Yes.
I want people to hear us talking about
Yes.
it so that they can go,
Yeah.
"Ooh, that sounds
That's
great,"
nice. Yeah, it
and not be
really
put off by the
is.
blow up mattress.
Yeah, no. No, 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 it's fine. They have really great ones now. They're,
Whew.
like, super thick, and you can bring sleeping pads on top of them.
There are
It's
some
great.
nice ones. I've seen some
Yeah,
nice ones.
no,
You're
they
right.
really are. They
Yeah.
truly are. Not to sell you too hard on it,
Yeah.
but no, it was. It was really special, and I feel like so many of my memories from church and the congregation are from those trips.
Yeah.
And again, being, you know, faithful in your life, and
Mhm.
attending church, you talk about this all the time in your
Right.
sermons, but doing things outside of just the walls of the church
Right.
is, where lives can change. So,
Right.
yeah, it's really
And
special.
not just to capitalize on our time, but really to see faith put in action.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what I hear
Mhm.
behind your words is a
Yeah.
sense that this just enriches your faith,
Mhm.
taking it beyond the walls of the church in a way
Yeah.
that, I mean, yes, you're doing something for someone else. That's good.
Yeah.
But for you as well, it's showing you God's presence in the world
Mhm.
outside. It is
Mhm.
allowing you to live it out
Yeah.
and to know the sort of blessing of your father,
Yes. Yeah.
in heaven, who is just going, yes, good and
Yeah.
faithful servant. This is
Yeah.
what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Whether it's talking to someone, and maybe that's
Mhm.
what you need to be doing at that moment
Mhm.
is just giving that person you're talking to the dignity of a conversation
Yeah.
and let them know that they are beloved by God. So
Mhm.
I don't know. On so
Mhm.
many levels, I'm just so pleased to hear you
Yeah.
talk about it. And I know it's obviously been very special to you. So,
Yes.
well, let
Yes.
me pivot then
Yeah.
into Samaritan's Purse because again,
Yes.
I probably never spent a lot of time with you outside of church settings, and of course Taylor's wedding.
Yeah.
Taylor and Sam's wedding,
Yes.
I should add,
Yes.
before that. And so, of course, we went out. I'll let you talk about it, but
Yeah.
we went out and did some hurricane relief, and it was me, you, Ellen, and Billy,
Yes.
and who went. So, tell us your impressions of that trip.
Yeah.
Just everything. What about that really spoke to you, and What were your takeaways from
Yeah.
it?
I thought it was gonna be I again, because I didn't know I knew who Billy was because he always wears his cowboy hat, but I was still, like, newer to knowing people.
Right.
Like, I knew a select few people that I, like, sit around or sat around, and,
Mhm.
um, I don't think I had started going to Soul Sisters yet, or maybe I
Mhm.
had, but everybody that I
Sure.
knew that was going with this, I didn't have outside of you, like, a
Right.
friendship with.
Right.
Um, and I remember meeting Ellen the day before we left
Mhm.
and just being like, "Okay, like, this will be great. Like,
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
gonna have so much fun." And I remember, like, telling some of my friends, and they were like, "You're just gonna sit in a car for, like, maybe 5 hours," because nobody knew how it was gonna be getting out
Exactly.
there,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, like, "You're just gonna go with essentially a group of strangers," and I was like, "I they go to
Yes.
my church, but yes." And it was just the best. Like, I wish we coulda stayed a whole 'nother week
I know.
because it was just so fun. Like,
It was.
the ride down was such a good time of just, like, getting to know each other better,
Yeah.
um and I joke, like, Ellen is, like, one of my best friends,
That's
and
brilliant.
it's I the family that I got within St. Timothy's at the
Mhm.
timing that I got it was just so special.
Cool.
And I think that, it truly I think it was your dad actually that was
Okay.
joking with me and was like, "Don't you wanna, like, go to some of the youth or not youth, young adult
Sure.
meetings?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally." But I was like, "I love being with whatever you're considering not the young adult group." Like,
Sure.
and it was because I was sitting at a table with, um, no other young adults, and your dad was, like, teasing me about it, and I was like, But these are my best friends." Like, I never realized that they were, you know,
Yeah.
not young adults. And it was just the best, like, getting super close with Ellen on that trip
Right.
was so fun. And then Billy, I feel like, now every day we see each other in church and it's like,
Mhm.
a automatic connection, even if we don't say
Yeah.
anything. It's just like
Right.
we know each other
Yeah.
very well after that trip.
Yeah.
And then sitting in church and knowing, you as well as I do now,
Mhm.
and hearing your sermons and knowing that,
Yeah.
um, knowing you always know that your pastor or your priest is
Mhm.
very faithful and
Sure.
I never had a personal connection with my pastor previously.
Right.
Like, it was too big of a church, I think, for that.
Yeah.
And so I love that about St. Timothy's, where we
Yeah.
have the ability to know about your
Sure.
life and know that you are practicing what you're preaching at the end of the day. Like,
Most of the
it's
time. Yes. And when I
it's
don't, sadly. Oh,
yeah.
but
No,
yes.
but it
Yeah.
was cool to just sit back and listen to you talk even when we were back at the center, just like
Mhm.
talking to the other people from the other
Yeah.
areas and hear your interpretations of things and
Right.
God, what God's telling you. It's
Mhm.
different than hearing a sermon or,
Sure.
it's I don't know, in ways it was even more impactful to hear you kind of
Right.
talk openly, I guess,
Yeah.
about your faith and different, things that people were asking. So,
Sure.
yeah, that trip was I feel like it was pivotal in the sense that it just brought me even
Yeah.
closer to the church. So,
I tell you, I remember we got into a conversation, me, you, and Ellen. I think you might have gone and started doing some work with someone, but anyway, there was a
yeah.
guy there who was on crutches. Do you remember him?
Yes.
I sadly don't remember his name, but he
Yes.
had gotten injured
Mhm,
when floodwater had come.
mhm,
And I remember him telling us that I guess a few days afterwards, because we were probably a week or two after by the
mhm,
time we went out there,
mhm,
or at least at that time.
mhm.
And a few days after, a pastor from Charlotte came up and he was baptized in the river that
Yeah.
destroyed his house.
Yep.
And of course, he hurt his leg in the process trying to, I can't remember what he was even doing,
Yeah.
but to hear that story and to sit and talk with him,
Yeah.
wow, it really did bring it home that
Mhm,
in the midst of such destruction, God was still at work.
mhm,
And I mean, we saw tragedy out there. I think
mhm,
of that family
mhm,
that the
mhm. Yeah.
the house came down the hill, and I mean, goodness, it was hard, but wow,
Mhm.
it was encouraging, not in a happy way, but to
Yeah.
know that God was present and still at work. And yeah, to see that I think is
Mhm,
was really impacting
mhm.
on all of us as a team.
Yeah,
But certainly be part of conversations like that
it was.
was
Yeah.
phew. So. If we haven't sold going to
Yeah.
a mission trip of some sort,
It really is.
then
It
please do
is.
consider it. There's so much you take from these things,
You
and
do.
no matter your age, as you said,
Yeah.
here you were 13 on your first
Mhm,
one of these, and
mhm.
it has just stuck with you and shaped you in a
Mhm.
way that's wonderful.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah, and to your point of age, it just made me think of that. My mom sent me they still get they're still on the mailing list for
Mhm.
St. Timothy's and or
Okay.
for St. Paul's,
Right.
and they just went to ASP, I guess. Their youth
Oh,
group still
cool.
went or
Yeah.
still goes, and, some of the adults are still going to this day. So, like,
Wow.
they are I mean, our
That's
youth
awesome.
director, he has to be in his mid to late 60s at this
Yeah.
point. And he still, I think, is the leader
Brilliant.
of it. Maybe not youth leader, but
Yeah.
he's, still leading ASP. And some of the other guys were
Cool.
the same dads that were there when we were going and moms that were there when we were going. So
Yeah.
it was really cool to see that even in their adult lives, they continued to see it as impactful
That's awesome.
and continue to go every year.
I'm so pleased to hear as well when people stick with youth specific ministry over the
Yeah.
years. Because I guess as you get older, and maybe I'm speaking for myself here, but you do lose that generational connection to the
Yeah.
younger generations.
Yeah.
And you suddenly realize, probably not long after leaving it,
Yeah.
certainly a long time leaving it, that you just don't have that connection anymore. I think unfortunately it means many youth workers and Christian ministers leave that. They go into
Yeah.
pastoral ministry for a church or they
Mhm.
do something else. And I think what a shame because I think our young people need to meet folks who are a generation or two or three
Mhm,
older
mhm.
than them.
Yeah,
And for those people in their 60s to have a love for youth
yeah.
and to still see them live out their faith and
Mhm.
come to know God more. Oh, that's just so encouraging to
It
see.
is. It is.
So cool.
Yeah,
That is very cool. Well,
yeah.
good. Well, let me ask this then, Amanda. I guess since we again are in our younger years,
Mhm. Yes.
still just we would be called in our younger years,
Yes, yes.
not to an 18-year-old maybe, but we are. Um, you know, I do find myself thinking a lot about the next generation of Christian people,
Mhm,
and as society changes, as culture changes, I think what's encouraging my heart is to see people in their 20s and 30s still
mhm,
part of church at a time when maybe it isn't as culturally
mhm,
common.
mhm.
It's still acceptable, I think, certainly in
Yes,
this region,
yes.
but it's not as common.
Yeah.
And almost people are more surprised that you probably do go
Mhm.
than
Then if you
not.
don't, yeah.
And so, what do you think as someone who is in this demographic
Mhm,
of young people going to church
mhm,
really is something that others who don't need to hear? What would draw people in?
mhm.
Some of it's what you've already mentioned,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
but but I am curious. I think it's good for our older congregation to hear and not just assume,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
hear, what has drawn you, but what do you think when you look at your friends and people who maybe don't go,
Mhm,
what would be good at drawing them in?
mhm.
Um, not to manipulate, of course,
Yeah. No,
but
no, no,
because God
no.
has an interest in them being here. And
Yeah.
his desire is for our desire
Mhm,
to bring them to know him. It's not about
mhm.
keeping a church open. It's about, bringing them to
Yes.
know Jesus Christ. So
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
background, what do you
Yes.
think is someone in that demographic that helps to bring younger people into church?
Yeah. I think it's I don't know. I think that there are a lot of
Mhm.
different reasons maybe that people aren't
Sure.
attending church anymore at my age. I don't know truly
Mhm.
what they are because when I talk to friends, it's not that they don't
Mhm.
believe, it's not that they
Mhm.
don't, have faith. And um, I think maybe like as a kid, it was for me and a lot of my friends, and it was
Mhm.
this is what you did on Sunday. You went to church and
Right.
then, you went on with your week. And I think it takes realizing that
Mhm.
there is something bigger going on in your life that like
Sure.
you should be at church and you
Right.
should be devoting that time and dedication to God and learning more about the Bible. But I feel like
Right.
especially when you get older, you do get this and kind of going back to like the friendship thing, like you do
Sure.
get this sense of not loneliness, but, like, this is life. Like, you are doing
Right.
life. You are no longer, seeing all of your best friends at school. You're no
Right.
longer you might not be going into an office to have that congregation or that community.
Mhm.
Um, and so I think people can find their way back to the church when they need
Mhm.
they don't have anywhere else to go, and they're like,
Mhm.
"I'm going through this. I don't have family to turn to. I don't have friends to turn to." Um, and that need to come back.
Mhm.
Um I think it helps, like, I have some of my friends down, in Fuquay, they are all like, their whole neighborhood goes to the same church, so
Oh,
it's like,
wow.
that kind of brings them it's a much
Yeah.
smaller physical community,
Right.
so it was easier for them to get back involved in a church there,
Right.
um, but I have always thought that there's so much to learn and so much to appreciate about
Mhm.
anybody not in my generation. So, like, I
Sure.
love going back to your dad joking about me sitting at the table, like, I love sitting at a table like that, and even if the jokes are like, "Oh, you don't know that TV show, you weren't even a thought yet,"
Right.
or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, like, I'm like, "That's totally fine." I love it
Yeah.
because there's so much faith and wisdom and,
Yeah.
just knowledge at those tables of those individuals that's kind of the whole point of
Right.
crossing generations like that.
Right.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know if it's
You make a good point there.
yeah.
How if you aren't involved in a church, and maybe especially if you don't have supportive family around
Mhm.
you, for
Mhm.
whatever reason you live too far away or
Yeah.
you just they passed away, whatever it be, how do you connect with people your age?
Mhm.
Maybe you have a boss who's a generation older than you if
Mhm.
you're in an office, but where do you? And
Yeah.
you lose that opportunity to hear and learn from those who have gone before you.
Mhm.
Not that everything they did was right
Yeah.
necessarily, but it is at least you can learn from their mistakes.
Mhm.
I mean, it's wonderful to have conversations with parishioners, many of whom are older than me, and to know
Mhm.
I'm hearing about their lives and being impacted by that and learning, even
Yeah.
though I didn't make that mistake or do that thing or
Yeah.
make that decision. To hear that is part of the learning process, and it sounds
Mhm.
like you're someone who values that, which
Mhm.
is great.
Mhm. Yeah.
Probably not everyone has that same value, which is a shame. They lose
Yes,
out,
I know.
but
They're the
the fact
best.
that you've had it nurtured here is a good thing. And
Yeah,
um,
definitely.
people your age will see that example and see
Mhm.
that you
Mhm.
enjoy being around people who are a generation or two or
Yes.
three
Yes.
older than you. So
Yeah.
so that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Well, I hope with that question as well, it's an encouragement to those who are watching us
Mhm.
and who are taking notes in our conversation,
Yes.
as to yeah, encourage those in their life who are younger to keep
Mhm.
coming.
Mhm.
Not to say, oh well, they'll find their way back, but to actually say, no, hey,
Yeah.
let's be an inviting church
Mhm.
that does try to involve
Yeah.
anyone younger than us, whether it's in our 40s, 30s, or
Yeah.
teens, even.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
important.
I will say those first few weeks of coming to St. Timothy's, like, there was never a
Mhm.
time where somebody didn't come up to me and, like, say
Awesome.
hi. Like, I remember the day I met Anne. Like, everybody was just so welcoming at all
Brilliant.
times. And I think maybe sometimes, especially my
Mhm.
generation of, like, we're the millennials, so we're not Gen Z, but we love them too. But I think for my generation, like, they maybe church was too came on too strong when they were a kid, so then
Sure.
they came away from it, and it's like,
Right.
you are now an adult, like, you can choose what
Right.
church looks like to you, so you don't have to go back to the place that you didn't like or
Right.
didn't agree with, or maybe
Right.
it was too loose and you didn't like that, or maybe it was too felt
Sure.
too tight and you didn't like that, like, you're an adult now, and it's time
Yeah.
for you to make those decisions for yourself, and I think,
Yeah.
um there's no harm in going to different churches and figuring out, where you fit,
Right.
and then committing to that.
And I have wondered too if a generation or two ago, well, let's say a decade or two ago,
Mhm,
um, we made youth ministry so kid centric.
mhm,
So it's all about Jesus speaking to you at your age, which
mhm.
was an important thing to address. But I wonder if that pendulum swung too far that way.
Yeah, I wonder.
And now when you think about, oh, what's church? Well, it was youth group.
Mhm,
And if
mhm.
you liked that, great.
Yeah,
That's probably disappointing then when you go to
yeah,
adult church or
you're right.
adult and you're going, "Oh, this isn't youth
Yeah,
group. We're not,
yeah, where's
putting
the
Cheetos on our
coloring?
face or
Yeah.
shaving cream or whatever it be." I mean,
Yes,
but
yes.
equally, it's good that the young are shown that, hey, this is something you will take through your life.
Yeah.
Much like we might a national identity
Mhm,
or a political identity maybe, but
mhm,
it's
mhm.
things that just stretch beyond a moment in our lives
Yeah.
and are refined as we go through.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
that's again where having people older who've been walking that journey and who can help you through it is great. So
Yeah.
I'm pleased you have had it, and I hope others,
Yes, I
like I
am too.
say, will come to our church because it gives so much.
It does. It
It
really
really does.
does.
I hope too our congregation won't give up hope in inviting the young.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have heard that attitude of like, oh, well, let people go away for a time, they'll come back. And
Yeah.
okay, I get it. Probably practically that may happen,
Mhm.
but equally not to give up hope that they will.
Yeah.
Or not just to go, oh, well, they'll come back when they come back. No, we can still actively say, hey,
Yeah.
when you're ready, come back.
Yeah.
That kind of door's always open, and we're
Mhm.
making sure they know it's always open,
Yes.
rather than
Yes.
just going, we're just gonna leave the door open, and if you find it, you find
Yeah.
it. No, let's be inviting,
Yeah.
and yeah. So yeah, cool.
I love that.
Well, awesome. Well, Amanda, thank you. I like I
Yeah.
say, I know we could talk for much longer.
I
We didn't
know.
even get to scratch the surface, I'm sure, of your life, but I really hope our congregation will have the chance to know more about you, of course, so that when they
Yeah.
see you at church,
Yeah.
where you sat, because let's be honest, we all sit in the same place every week.
I know, I always try. I had oh my gosh, there was one Sunday I came in and I was like, "Oh no, there's people in my row." So I went up to Catherine and I was like, "Can I sit with you?" She's like, "Why don't you do this all week or every week?" And I was like, "I don't know. It's a good question."
That is a phenomena I wish someone would study.
I know. It's
Why
gotta be like
why do we sit?
creatures of habit
I
or
guess.
something.
But, like, I find that even with the bus, or I mean, I used
Yeah.
to take the bus in the
Yes.
UK, like, I'd
Yeah.
always prefer a certain
Yes.
seat or a
Same with
certain
like
seat on the train,
airplanes.
or
Yeah. Yes.
so I
It is funny. I don't know. And it's probably funny from your view because you can just like assume where everybody would be.
well, the funny thing is, yes, I basically know where everyone's
Yeah.
gonna be. If I know when people aren't here
Yes.
because they're not in
Yes.
their seat,
You're like, that one's
but
missing.
also when I describe somebody like, "Oh, yeah, Amanda, she sits about maybe I don't know, about 20 rows back," and
Yes.
she so
We played that game the whole way to Western Carolina
yes.
because I knew nobody's name at that point, and you were like, "Yeah, they sit," and I was like, "I know exactly
I
who
know
you're talking
exactly
about."
who that
Yeah.
is.
I see the back of their head all Sunday.
So I guess it is a helpful tool.
It
However, it
is.
is sort of just
It
going,
is.
ugh, it's sad but true.
I know. It's funny.
But
But yeah, so I'm on like the right if you're walking down the aisle, I'm on the right,
okay.
kinda like midway through, like halfway
Okay.
back. So,
Okay. So you've heard it
yes.
from her. If you
Yes.
happen to be
Yes.
passing by on the right, about maybe 6, 7 rows in from
Yes.
the back doors,
Yes.
then come and say hey. Is that
Yes,
what I
of
gather?
course.
Good.
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Would love it.
Well, Amanda, thank you. Thank you
Thank
for just a
you.
good conversation,
Yeah.
and thank you for being part of our church.
Yes. Thank you for
If
having
there
me.
is ever anything, well, maybe there's something you want to say, we could pray for you. We'd love to. And I say pray
Mhm.
not just for a very moment, but we can do
Yeah.
that too.
Yeah.
But just as a congregation, whether it's your work related or just your faith, whatever it be, if there is anything we can pray for you,
Well,
what would that be?
oh, goodness. Oh, it's a question. Okay. Yes, I can answer that. Um, I think, oh my gosh, that's a good question.
I know, probably not one you get all the
I
time, so I don't
think,
expect a ready-made
no,
answer.
no, but I love it. It should be asked more often. Um, I guess just for continued faith
Mhm.
through,
Yeah,
um, being at that we've talked a lot about age and, where
sure.
I am in my life. And,
Mhm.
there's still so many more things and phases to go through.
Yeah,
And I think my faith has gotten me through so many of those phases up until this point.
cool.
And I think about it all the time, like how fortunate I have been
Mhm.
to have not had a lot of awful things happen.
Right.
And unfortunately, awful things are always a part of life and they come and
Sure.
they go. And so I guess just continued faith
Mhm.
and strength and yeah, and happiness
Okay.
because there's so much more to be done.
Cool.
So
Well, you heard it from
yeah.
her. So if you all want to sustain Amanda in
Oh,
prayer in that way,
oh,
we
thank
should be
you.
praying for one another, and not give up
Thank
that.
you.
So thank you, Amanda. Awesome.
Yes, thank you.
Cool.